Starting a business can seem like a daunting task, unless you have a partner like Shopify. They have the tools you need to start and grow your business. From designing a website to marketing to selling and beyond, Shopify can help with everything you need. There's a reason millions of companies like Mattel, Heinz, and Allbirds continue to trust and use them. With Shopify on your side, turn your big business idea into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
Recently, I came across someone on Twitter who claimed to be a whistleblower with extremely detailed knowledge of the UFO and UAP topic. When I first came across this person, I figured, okay, they're just a charlatan. They're a charlatan like these time travelers on TikTok who claim to be from the year 3535. If you listen to his story, it is remarkably persuasive. So you can judge for yourself whether what he's saying is true. I'll just say I found it very, very interesting. So I'm very, very pleased to welcome to the other side of midnight a gentleman that we're going to call Charles, who is a whistleblower with extremely detailed knowledge of the UFO topic, who received 8 classified briefings over a 9-year time frame from January 2003 until September of 2012. Charles, thanks so much for joining me on the radio.
Hey, Frank, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Appreciate the opportunity to talk with you. Now, let me get this out of the way, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because it's not necessarily relevant to everything we're going to talk about. But you're currently incarcerated. Some people may think that undermines the credibility of some of the things that you are going to share with us. To the extent that you're able to comment on it, why are you incarcerated at this point, and how are you talking to us right now?
Yeah. All right. So, real quick, the way I'm talking to you is I call my girl, and then she 3 ways, or she receives the call and then she conferences it, and I'm able to communicate that way. I call off my jailhouse tablet, and then I'm able to connect with people that way. As long as I have money on my tablet, I can call, and I do. As far as what I was incarcerated for, this right here gets people, sometimes to not listen, and then other people to tune in even further. I tell them the truth. The truth is, I was arrested for a crime I didn't commit back in 2012, a bank robbery where they said the robber passed a note, whatever. But it wasn't me. And the expert witnesses for the FBI from Quantico that the state called, they admitted on the stand there was a chance it wasn't me. The lead detective admitted there's a chance it wasn't me, but they convicted me anyway. And, I was in my 20s. I was immature, so it looks like as soon as I can secure a legal team, my writ of actual innocence will have me home pretty soon.
Got it. Okay. Well, wishing you the best of luck in that respect. We have a lot of listeners right now who are incarcerated, some of whom may soon include sitting New York City mayors. But just so folks understand, what we're going to talk about, the UFO stuff and your knowledge of it, that has nothing to do with your incarceration, or does it?
No, it doesn't.
Gotcha.
And that's another thing, because my address never dictates the validity of the information. That's a fact.
Gotcha. Okay. Let's give folks some background, Charles, as to how you came to be in a position to learn this information and be in these briefings. You, beginning in 2003 or so, you were involved with the military, specifically the Air Force. What exactly was your involvement with the military?
I really didn't have direct involvement with the military per se. So what I had was a childhood mentor, okay? And he was always trying to get me out the streets. Like, hey, man, like, what are you doing? Like,
careful, because we're on radio, Charles. I can't have you use profanity. Just be careful.
Sorry about that. So I really wasn't trying to hear that stuff. You know what I mean? So basically, he was Air Force Intelligence Office of Special Investigations, OSI. And back then, I didn't know what that meant when he said that he was Air Force Intelligence. I didn't know that was a thing. So moving forward, fast forward 4 months or so, we became pretty tight. And he was like a father figure to me. And we still never talked about that subject at all. And back then, when you're 17 years old, this was actually the summer of 2002. And when you're that young, you can't look past Friday night. So me and my girlfriend, we broke up, and I thought it was the end of the world, So I left, and even though I was on juvenile probation for something petty, I ended up leaving. And long story short, they violated my juvenile probation for leaving, going to Ohio. So they put me in this juvenile boot camp center. It was ran by all active and retired military personnel. And it was on top of South Mountain, Pennsylvania, called Leadership Development Program, ran by Abraxas. So my counselor was active Air Force, Mr. Paul, and we got pretty cool too. I turned 18 while I was in there, and one of the older guys in there. And so long story short, we on the last 5 weeks is the wilderness phase, and we're on 2 weeks of that. We'll do a field op on the Appalachian Trail. So we're on the Appalachian Trail one night. He starts talking about stuff in outer space, and I'm just listening to him. But he told me about a specific project that happened back in the 60s. And it sounded outlandish. It sounded made up, like some sci-fi stuff. So I'm like, there's no way this is real. So I didn't even pay it no mind, but I remembered it. And so anyways, fast forward, I get out a couple of weeks later, and I'm home. I'm at my mother's house, and I see my mentor pull in. So I run over, I get in the car. We take a drive, we pull off at the park or whatever. And what's the first thing that a mentor asks you? He says, "Well, did you learn anything?" So I thought I would be, a smart aleck, and be like, "Well, yeah, I learned that your Air Force sent 12 soldiers to live on another planet back in the 1960s, and it was called Project Crystal Night." And he grabbed hold of me and asked me where the F I heard that from. And I realized pretty quick that it was real, and I shouldn't know it. And now I'm thinking, like, this guy might try to hit me with the car. Like, I don't know. Like, what do I do? So he ended up letting me go. I sat back up. He was silent for a while. And then he asked me what I thought about it. And I was like, well, obviously I would want to know more, but I know I can't. So, like, I'm not even going to talk about this anymore. So,
Charles, let me interrupt, and I want to hear the rest of the story of how these briefings came to be. But just so folks understand where you're coming from in the context here, why would your mentor, as close as you are, why would he let you in on a state secret like that? It would seem like that's a secret that's pretty closely guarded.
Well, that's what I'm getting ready to get to. Mm-hmm. So his reaction was because we were so close, and it was a knee-jerk reaction that he didn't mean to have, I don't believe. So when he had it, he realized that, he had revealed to me that it was real just by his reaction. So now he's in a decision-making mode. So when he asked me what I thought about it, I said I didn't know, whatever. So he drove me home, and I'm getting out, and he grabs a hold of me, and I'm like, this is it. He's going to take me out now. Like, this is it. And so he just looked at me and said, I'll be in touch. About 2 weeks later, it's the end of January 2003. I'll never forget. I'm on ICQ back when that was a thing. It's like back before they had all that social media. It was just DMs, no pictures. So I'm looking out, facing the computer, which is I'm looking towards the window, and I see the pull off where the mailbox is at, and it's him. I'm like, oh man! So I just grabbed all my stuff, put it on, I ran down, I get in the car, and he's like, were you serious about wanting to know more about that? I'm like, yeah, absolutely, but I know I can't, so it's okay. He said, give me your word as a man, and that you'll never repeat anything, and we'll see what we can do. So I was like, all right, yeah, you got my word. He's like, no. I said, I want your word as a man. So that was really big for him, military thing. So I'm like, okay, you got my word as a man. You got it. He said, all right, sit back. Fast forward, we go to a hotel. He pulls up right across from the Flamingo restaurant in Fayetteville, Pennsylvania on Route 30. I'll never forget it. He pulls up to the room because he already had the room. So we walk in. There's a chair facing the bed. The back of it facing the TV. And there's these two cardboard boxes with cardboard lids on the table. And then he's got the refreshments, little bag from Sheetz gas station, little cooler with some drinks in case I got thirsty. He pointed at the bathroom. He said, if you need a bathroom break, it's right there. He said, you ready? I said, yeah. And he said, take a seat. I took a seat. He said, what you're about to receive is called a briefing. And he went over to the box and he pulled off the lids one at a time. He started pulling out these files. Files upon files, man. And some of them had the War Office stamp from the Pentagon, Majestic, Magic Eyes Only, Top Secret Code Word, clearance. And I'm just looking at it. He pulls out transcripts from presidential briefings from Ronald Reagan before they were leaked, pulling out these Serpo documents. He's pulling out transcripts from the audio journals that were typed up from the soldiers that went to that planet. Like all this crazy stuff. He pulls out pictures of the craft from Kingman, Arizona, and from Roswell, and the second craft from Roswell. That I actually released that 3 years ago, way before Louis Elizondo ever said that. And just all types of autopsy photos and pictures of pictures, and just you name it, I'm seeing it. I'm floored. I'm like, wow, like this is insane. Like I didn't even think this stuff was real. So fast forward over a 9-year period, that became 8 of those. And I would be living a double life. I'd be in the streets doing my thing, doing whatever I do. I get locked up, I get out, and he would find me and he'd be like, look, what are you doing? You're a knucklehead. Get your your act together, whatever. And then that would always segue into, hey, I got something to show you, or, hey, I'll be by in the morning. And we both knew what that meant. So then you fast forward till recently, I came out, came forward with a whistleblower document a few years ago. Senate got it, got pushed aside for COVID and a few other things. So fast forward till a couple of months ago, my girl helped me get on X. So I got on X and made some posts, started getting a following, and they wanted to do a special on me, the spaces on there. So they had a couple thousand people listening or whatever, and Richard Doty showed up. And Richard Doty is a retired OSI agent. And people wanted to get his take on it because my information was supposed to come from his office. So he's in there, and he's saying that he's confirmed my name as being in the intelligence database. Now, I thought these briefings were illegal, off the books the whole time. I had no idea. So he gets a direct message from another OSI agent who's listening, who was a senior agent who was involved in something called Operation Society Hike. And he tells him that I was actually part of Operation Society Hike, and that's why my name is being able to be verified in the database. And so then he goes on to explain that Operation Society Hike was to grab different members of societies when they're very young and try to groom and train them to become assets for intelligence purposes and give them classified governmental operations and prepare them for future clandestine operations for whatever subject that they were being briefed on. And there was hundreds of us, but I was one particularly for this subject. And then my mentor was never going to bring me in, but when I revealed what I revealed to him and he reacted the way he reacted, I assume he ran it up the food chain because he was a senior field operative. I found this out later. But he had the authority to bring me up, but he ran it up the flagpole and got me approved. And I never knew that. I thought the whole time they were illegal briefings. Now, according to Richard Doty and some other OSI agents since then, he did include things that he was not supposed to show me with the other stuff that he was approved to show me.
Charles, I have to break in a second, and we're going to continue. But just so I understand that he was developing you as some sort of an asset here, but why would a relatively high-ranking member of Air Force intelligence need to cultivate someone that was sort of a low-level criminal in order to deal with top-secret, sensitive stuff like UFOs and things like that?
And that's the thing. I always thought that he brought me in and gave me these briefings illegally, right? because he wanted to finally share the library of stuff that he had illegally obtained and was not allowed to show anyone, right? So looking back on it, finding out what I found out through retired OSI agent Richard Doty and other OSI agents that confirmed that this program existed, and I was part of it, that I found out, and I looked back and I realized,
Last week was our first playoff game, and my plaque psoriasis was so itchy under all my gear. Sometimes just thinking about scratching could take me out of the moment. And then my doctor told me I could get clearer skin with a pill called Otezla.
Otezla apremilast is a prescription medicine used to treat adult patients with plaque psoriasis for whom phototherapy or systemic therapy is appropriate. Otezla can help you get clearer skin after just 4 months.
Okay, ready for the next game. Talking to my doctor about a pill was a total game changer.
Don't use Otezla if you're allergic to it. Get medical help right away if you have trouble breathing or swallowing, swelling of the face, lips, tongue, throat, or arms. Severe diarrhea, nausea or vomiting, depression, suicidal thoughts, or weight loss can happen. Tell your doctor if any of these occur and if you have a history of depression or suicidal thoughts. Live in the moment. Ask your doctor about Otezla. Call 1-844-4-OTEZLA or visit Otezla.com for prescribing info about cost, and more.
We were friends.
You to be careful, Charles, because you're going to get us fined.
Sorry.
Okay, I got a break anyway. Hold and just that's the question that I want you to answer when we come back is why are you being informed of all this stuff? And then I have a lot of other questions, and we'll give people a chance to call in with questions as well. 646-720-0635. That's 646-720-0635. This is The Other Side of Midnight. Straight ahead.
It's The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano.
This is The Other Side of Midnight. I'm Frank Morano. We're talking with Charles. He is a whistleblower that is currently incarcerated, someone who has very detailed knowledge of the UAP topic, who claims to have received 8 classified briefings over a 9-year time frame from January 2003 until September of 2012. Charles, I got a lot of questions for you, but you told us about these briefings that you received. The question that I think a lot of people are asking is, why would a high-ranking member of Air Force intelligence be sharing such sensitive information with someone who might be a low-level criminal or a low-level drug dealer?
Okay, so like I said, I was a troubled teen, and he took an interest in me, was my childhood mentor, so at first, like I said, I thought that these were completely illegal briefings and that they were off the books. And like I said, recently, I found out when retired Air Force intelligence officer, OSI, within the Advanced Working Group out of Kirkland, who actually worked at Edwards as well, which is Area 51, confirmed this. Rick Doty, publicly already stated that my name was in the database and that there was actually something called Operation Society Hike. And the reason why, looking back on it, is he trusted me, because he knew me. He knew I wasn't a bad guy and I wasn't a bad kid. We had a fatherly son type of mentor, bond already. So when I revealed what I revealed to him that I learned, and he reacted the way he reacted, it crossed his mind. I said, well, we do have this thing, Operation Society Hike, and let's go ahead and recruit this kid, and because I know him and I'll vouch for him.
Mm-hmm.
And Richard Doty said that the contact with the program started in January of 2003, and he said that it was terminated in 2012 due to my run-in with the justice system for the last time, because it was a very serious alleged charge. So that my contact was terminated, and that was it. But the detail that I have,
mm-hmm.
I mean, it's undeniable.
Right.
I can tell you things.
So let's get into some of it. So you received 8 classified briefings over a 9-year period. How did your understanding of the UFO or UAP phenomenon evolve from the first briefing to the last one, from the first one to the eighth the eighth one over 9 years. And can you give us a glimpse into one of the more shocking revelations you encountered during this time?
Now, that's a really good question that no one's ever asked me before, was the evolution. And I'm glad you brought that up, because the very first briefing was just sporadic. It was like an informational dump with a bunch of different things. And from Roswell to Kingman to Serpo, it was just overwhelming. But by the time we got to the 12th brief, or the eighth briefing in 2012, it was organized. It was, hey, let's bring back what I briefed you in 2004 when it came to this, but also let's cap it off with this. And it was, a lot. These briefings usually lasted between 6.5 to 8.5 hours, and they're very extremely detailed. And I would get to see the classified file completely unredacted, except for a few names that he redacted on his own. And he would verbally brief me on what I'm reading while I'm reading it, and I'd be able to ask questions, and he'd be able to fill in blanks. And my most shocking briefing was hands down my sixth briefing, January 2009. I cried for 3 days after that briefing. That had to do with religion and stuff like that. But before we. Yeah,
at 30 minutes after the hour, this is The Other Side of Midnight. So give us some of what you learned in that briefing that was so shocking.
This one turns off a lot of people, because a lot of people are religious. I mean, let's face it. A lot of people look to religion. I found out the truth behind religion. I found out that Zacharias Sitchin got a lot right. He got some things wrong, but he got a lot right when it came to a species they call the Anunnaki. Their real name is the Nibiruans, and in the classified files, they refer to them as the ancient builder race. They don't have the ETE designation like a lot of the other ones do, which identify from star system. And that's because they're in our star system, which technically would fall under ETE4, but it's from a rogue planet that originated in the Sirius star system to begin with, before our solar system was even around. So this civilization created us. This fact. They created us out of what was already here, like a Homo erectus type. And they talk about Adam and Eve. There was about 50 to 60 Adams, or Adamus, as the Sumerians called them, before there was ever an Eve, which was actually Tiamat. And then once they created them, and they started they got old enough to have sex, they weren't procreating. So they were like, what's going on? Why are they not procreating? And one of the Anunnaki, or Nibiruans, as I refer to them as, their real name, was a mathematical genius. He's also the one who built the pyramids of Giza. His name was Mengistu. And he was they do royal bloodlines and princes and kings and stuff. That's where we got it from, actually. And so he was a royal prince, and he worked with Enki, or Enki. It's EN.KI. And Enki's the one that created us, with Mengistu, his son, and his half-sister / spouse, Menma. And that's actually where the Egyptians got breeding with their half-sister on the father's side to keep the bloodline pure. That's where they got it from. So he figured out that we needed a 23rd chromosome, which they call the life essence. And so that's where they put Enki up on one of the tables, and put Adamu up on one of the tables, and took out the DNA out of the marrow of the rib. And that's where that came from, the story of Genesis. I found out that this is going to really make some people upset, but I found out that the whole Genesis, God created this on this day, this on this day, and this on this day, and then on the seventh day he rested. I found out that was nothing more than Enki and his scientific crew landing in southeastern Africa and setting up base camp, and on the seventh day resting. and they were actually very scared the first day because the sun rose and fell so quickly, something they weren't used to. They thought it was like damn, we just got here and it's about to be the end of the world already. Like they were pretty scared when they saw how quick the days were. But that's when it got his attention and said, okay, well, I'm going to call that a day. And that's where that came from. And that's everything that's in the Old Testament. The entire Old Testament is talking about this species. And when the god is talked about in the Old Testament, they are referring to either Enki, his brother Enlil, or one of the royal princes, Marduk, the entire time. And the New Testament is completely different. And that was actually created by a very benevolent species from the Zeta Reticuli star system called ETE2. Type A, Type B, Type C, and Type D.
If folks are just tuning in, I'm Frank Morano. This is The Other Side of Midnight. We're talking with Charles. He's a whistleblower with detailed knowledge who's been briefed extensively on the UAP issue. Charles, the biblical stuff is really interesting, and the possibility of extraterrestrial inspiration for both the Old and the New Testament. But you mentioned that much of the information out there comes from 20 different accounts, but you have the one true account. What do you believe is the most significant piece of misinformation being spread, and how does the reality differ from the narrative that we've been hearing?
Well, that's easy. That they are acting like the species that crashed at Roswell is a, quote, threat to national security, end quote. That is an absolute lie. That is a lie. The species that crashed at Roswell, which is ETE2 Type C, okay, they are the most benevolent species in the galaxy that we've ever came in contact with. It's on any of the ETE lists. By the way, ETE stands for extraterrestrial entity. Then the number is order of first contact, which is designated to a star system. So ETE2 is the Zeta Reticuli 2-in-1 binary star system. So that's where they're from. They're from the fourth planet out. Now that's completely uncharted. If they just pointed the James Webb at it, they'd, and they were allowed to actually tell us. Or even the Hubble could probably find it, but it's there. It's the fourth planet out. It sits at like a 39-degree axis tilt. It's an extreme axis tilt. So anyways, that species is the most benevolent species, but they are trying to convince you, and this, I need everybody to really pay attention, because this is coming, and it's almost here. And I've been telling people this for a while now, that during my 8th and final briefing, my handling agent told me specifically a phrase to look out for any whistleblowers or insiders that came forward leading up to what's coming. And he said, you'll be able to identify it by one key phrase they will continue to try to shove down your throat. And I said, well, what is it? He said, threat to national security. If they tell you that this alien species is a threat to national security over and over and over, and UFOs and UAPs are a potential, quote, threat to national security over. Look at everything David Grush said. How many times did he say threat to national security when he testified?
Right, at least 24.
Luis Elizondo. How many times did he say it in his book? How many times did he say it in every single interview, even before he wrote his book, when ATEP first came out? How many times was that mentioned in the article? Every single one of them are saying threat to national security over and over and over. And it's what I was told to look out for, specifically because they have a plan that for a one world government, and it's not a conspiracy theory. This is real. And the reason for that dates all the way back to 1957. And we had a member of the Galactic Federation of Light make contact with our military. It was brought to the White House. And he stayed for 3 years. His name is Valiant Thor. A lot of people think that that's a myth. That was a real thing. They have pictures of this guy. He was a human representative from the GFL. And he made us an offer. Get rid of your nukes worldwide. Show your maturity level by putting your borders down. And we will allow the entire planet and your society to join the Galactic Federation of Light, and we, come out to the cosmos with us. And we declined. We turned that down. Now, they started to deal with us in secret with certain secret governments, ran all by the United States classified group known as the Majestic 12 Group. And 54-12 is actually the classified order given. They're listed as a special studies group for the National Security Council and following Roswell. And so they turned it down because we already had a 70-year contract with ETE-1, which is a biomechanical species with suction cups on the ends of their fingers for type A, type B, and type C, 4 fingers, and you're webbing in between their fingers and toes. But type D, they have like 5 fingers and toes, more of a brownish complexion than gray. And that contract runs out in a matter of weeks. And we are not allowed to reveal them or the contract, which was 2,200 United States citizens a year in exchange for technology abductions. They were allowed to, and that's not catch and release, that's catch and keep and experiment on and do whatever you want with it. And that actually turned all the way up to about 25,000 per year as other species got on board with that.
So, Charles, how many species, alien species, do you believe that our government has firsthand knowledge of and or has interacted with?
This episode is brought to you by Netflix. 3 couples, 4 vacations, a lot to unpack. Watch The 4 Seasons, a new series starring comedy favorites Tina Fey, Steve Carell, Will Forte, Coleman Domingo, and more in a hilarious and heartfelt love letter to long-term relationships. Based on the original Alan Alda film. Watch The 4 Seasons, streaming now only on Netflix.
Okay, so it's definitely not, like, I don't believe one way or another. I just, I got to see the files, and it was pretty shocking. There's over 150.
150? Wow.
That we know of that have came to this planet, but there's only about 12 to 13 that star systems that have a regular presence here, and out of those, there's about 30 of the types altogether.
I have a lot of other questions about this information, but this is a lot of people hearing this for the first time, and they're finding it very difficult to believe. And they're going to turn to me, and I'm anticipating the emails and the calls that I'm going to get after you're off. They're going to turn to me and say, Frank, this is someone you're talking to who's in prison, who clearly has time on his hands and is very creative and is a very good storyteller. And he's concocted this whole story based on stuff that other people have reported and based on stuff that is just made up. Is there anything that you can tell people as sort of a smoking gun, any evidence that what you're telling them is the truth?
Well, 2 things. One, I would say, how in the world would I get a retired Air Force intelligence officer to come out and publicly state that what I'm saying is true, that I've received these briefings? That's, I can't just make that up. He did that on his own. I didn't even know that guy. That's number one. Number 2 is I can explain to you how the technology works, of how these UFOs work, and that's never been fully explained by anybody but me. And it'll make complete sense to anybody that's listening, how these craft can maneuver the way they do without killing the people inside like everyone thinks that they would. I could explain it to you, and you would understand it to a degree to where you're like, okay, that makes sense. And there's no, how would I be able to know that? And then I could tell you exactly where this planet is located, and you could point the Gemini telescope down in Chile, the land that's strong enough to see it. And it's never been identified or charted on any of the scientific community maps, star charts. How would I know that's there? If they didn't know it was there, how would I know it's there? These are things you can go look at. You can go verify. And then if I was able to get in front of Congress, look at what I'm trying to do, regardless of my address, which shouldn't matter. My address doesn't dictate the level of validity. So if I can get in front of them, I can get them to use their authority that they really do have. And I can give them final report numbers. I can give them document numbers. I can give them exact locations where things are at to go get to where instead of just calling and saying, "Hey, do you guys have this there?" No, okay, yeah. Well, we looked into it. No, go get it. I'll tell you where it's at and tell you the file number to where it's at, where you can go get it. And these things Congress can take care of, but just for the everyday listener, those things I just listed. And I mean, that's unequivocal proof. How would I ever get Air Force intelligence to come out and verify my name and verify that I received those briefings? I'm nobody special. I don't have Air Force intelligence on speed dial. If I just made this up, how would some random OSI agent come forward and publicly state that?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
In your experience, Charles, how far is the U.S. government willing to go to keep this information from the public? And do you believe there's a legitimate reason for keeping it secret, or is it more about power and control?
How far would they go? They assassinated a sitting United States president in front of the entire world and got away with it in order to keep this subject quiet. So, specifically, Kennedy wanted. Okay, look, Kennedy told MJ-12, who was supposed to be answering to the office of the President of the United States, but by the time Eisenhower left office, he referred to them as the military-industrial complex. That's where that name comes from. It's a nickname he gave them because he couldn't reveal their real identity as classified. He lost control of them. So by the time Kennedy came in, he was briefed on him. And so he wanted to exert control back over them. So he couldn't do it through the CIA. So he created a rival agency that would have within the Pentagon. So him and Defense Secretary Robert McNamara, October 1st of 1961, they came up with the Defense Intelligence Agency, the DIA. And they used that, and it worked. And so fast forward to where the exchange program, which was Project Crystal Knight, where we sent 12 soldiers to live on another planet and in exchange for one alien to stay here with us. And he wanted to televise it. And it was scheduled for April 24th of 1964. Now, that only turned out to be a meeting where they recovered some of their dead and gave us a couple things of technology, a couple gifts, and then it was rescheduled to actually take the soldiers with them on July 16th of 1965. So anyways, he wanted to televise that April 24th, 1964 meeting. They told him no. He said, "I don't answer to you. You answer to me. I'm the president." And they're looking at him like, "Okay, right on, sure, whatever you say." So they ignored him. But then he said, "Not only do I want to do that, but we're going to take everything we have and we're going to trade it with the Soviet Union for everything that they have." And they said, "No, absolutely no, we're not doing it." He said, "Again, you answered to me, not the other way around." So it was recommended to MJ-1, which is the leader of MJ-12, October of 63, that they kill him. They actually referred to him as Lancer in a cable communication, and that's actually been leaked.
Yeah.
And,
I know Dr. Michael Sala, among others, has said exactly that. We're talking with Charles, a UAP whistleblower. We're going to continue in a moment. If time permits, in our last few minutes together, we'll try and take some of your questions. 646-720-0635. That's 646-720-0635. This is The Other Side of Midnight. Straight ahead.
It's The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano.
This is The Other Side of Midnight. I'm Frank Morano. We have a rare opportunity to chat with someone who claims to have insider knowledge that can't be faked of the UFO and UAP topic. A gentleman named Charles, who's currently incarcerated. A lot of you have said you're having a tough time hearing what he's saying. I understand that. But when you're speaking in a prison cell, things are a little difficult. He's received 8 classified briefings over a 9-year time frame from January of 2003 until September of 2012. Charles, in your opinion, and this is a question that I ask about to a lot of mafia guys that I interview, but I'll ask you, which sci-fi movie or television show comes closest to accurately depicting the reality of the UFO or UAP phenomenon?
That's actually funny you bring that up. See, there's something called the Public Acclamation Program. And again, I'm going to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but Steven Spielberg is actually the head of that. And most of his films about aliens are based in reality but told in a fictional way. But to answer your question, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which was the movie that actually got Steven Spielberg that position, he had that exchange program that I'm telling about with Serpo. He had that information leaked to him. And so he put it in there. If you go back and watch Close Encounters of the Third Kind, you'll see that he never explained why there were 12 soldiers that were being trained to leave with these aliens. He never even explained how they knew they were leaving or anything. And he put that in there, and he put little Easter eggs of information in there with little thick protective sunglasses. Well, that's a binary star system. It's very bright. So he wanted everybody that knew about the program to see that he knew. And that's exactly what happened. And that's how he got debriefed on, hey, how the heck did you know to put this in there? Like, who's telling you this stuff? So he actually, that's how the Public Acclamation Program started. But then when you look at, you look at Independence Day. That's, again, public acclamation to try to convince you that aliens are going to invade. So when they do this fake alien invasion that's coming up, you'll believe it. But the craft that they said was from Roswell, but actually this represents the Kingman craft from 53. It was pretty similar as far as how it operates, with a field around it, but instead of a force field, it's actually an artificial electromagnetic field. So that's accurate. Then you have Part 2, Independence Day Part 2, how they have bases on the moon, and they go back and forth from Earth to the moon. That's actually real. It's called LOC, Lunar Operations Command, which is part of Lunar Base 1 and Lunar Base 2. That's a fact. The fact that we have anti-gravity repulsion craft, which are called ARVs, Alien Reproduction Vehicles, flying around in the sky, that's a fact. That's real. I'd say about 60% of the UFO sightings you see that's us with our own craft. That's not alien.
Really? That's interesting. Yeah. Obviously, as a whistleblower, Charles, you're taking an enormous personal risk, I would think anyway, to share this sort of information. What ultimately made you decide that now was the time to speak out? And are you fearful of any potential repercussions?
So I first authored my whistleblower document in written form for the Senate back in 2021. And what really made me come forward was I'm looking at the news, I'm seeing all the lies, and remember that collapse that happened in Surfside, Florida? Remember that?
Sure, absolutely.
So I spent the first 5 months of 2021 contacting CIA Office of Scientific Intelligence / Group 6, the Defense Intelligence Agency. I even tried to reach out to Trump. Right before he left office, I tried to reach out to Kamala Harris just because she was the head of the space program for the Biden administration. Like, I just tried to reach out to these people internally, trying to tell them, like, look, there's a whole better way we could be doing this. We don't have to do what's coming. Everybody ignored me. So I said, okay, right on. But then when I'm watching Surfside, Florida happen, and I know the technology we have, and I'm going to explain it to you here and how it works here in a minute. We have anti-gravity repulsion tech. We have handheld devices that use. We have craft that use. I mean, we can pick up anything. And when I hear them explain that they can't use heavy machinery to get down to these victims that survive the initial collapse, that could be inside of these pockets because they don't want to create another collapse, that the epitome of the technology that they think that they have available to them to save these lives are 5-gallon plastic buckets, bro. And because of that, they all ended up dying. That was it. because the only reason why you didn't go save all of them is because it's not time yet. It made me sick, made me disgusted, and it was like a domino effect. And I was like thinking to myself, all the technology that I know, I can explain how it works. Like, how would I know that? You know what I mean? All the stuff I know we have, it was just like, well, what about all the other collapses around the world? You know, what about all the pollution? All these things that don't have to exist, but they only exist because MJ12 has their claws in pharmaceutical companies and oil companies and electrical companies in order to siphon off that money to fund their secret space program to go with the defense budget that they siphoned trillions off over all these years to fund their secret space program. So if they reveal this technology, they'll no longer be able to have that money coming in because those businesses they'll go out of business. It just made me sick, and I decided to come forward. And it was taking a while, but like I said, once I got Twitter, and by the way, for anyone who's listening, I get real detailed on there. It's at TruthTold24. So check it out.
Yeah, I linked to you in a recent tweet. Folks could find you through me as well at Frank Morano. That's Frank, Morano. Do you think that there are others like you? We only have about 2 minutes left here, Charles, but do you think that there are others like you within the intelligence community who have access to even more shocking information but are hesitant to come forward? If so, what would you say to encourage them?
If they have access to the false syndication and warning operation that's on its way, there's a better way. You do not have to do that. I spent years putting together my own POA, my own plan of action. Come see me. We can do it a whole different way. We do not have to go and do this 60-year-old plan where they're just loyal to their predecessors that are outdated ways of thinking. Like, we don't have to do this fake alien invasion crap. We don't have to do World War III to get everybody to their lowest point so that everybody, is divided, and then do this fake alien invasion to say, hey, we have to come together and put our borders down now, so we can defeat a common enemy. Like, we don't have to go that route. We don't have to do that. If you have access to those files, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Interesting. Charles, we're going to have to end it there. I really appreciate you being so generous with your time. Please keep us posted. I'll encourage everybody to follow you on Twitter. Again, I just linked to you in a tweet at Frank Morano. And you're right, there's a ton of other interesting information on there. We certainly got a preview of that tonight. Thanks so much.
All right, Frank, thank you.
Thank you. If you want to comment, you can certainly do so. 646-720-0635. I'm convinced